तोजयं मुदीरयेत् शृण्वतां स्वकतः कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्तोऽस्ति भद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So thank you for joining us. So we are continuing with the first canto, and in the previous session we concluded chapter 7 when we were about to begin chapter 8. We want to quickly summarize chapter 7, at least the section that was discussed in the previous session, for allow us to transition into the present more smoothly. The previous session we talked about the phenomenon of how Krishna uses his devotees to set an example. So his devotees apparently go through all kinds of tribulations and challenges, but yet he is always in the center. And he is always basically their focus, regardless of the tribulations, regardless of the challenges they go through. And what we notice in the previous chapter is that Yudhishthir Maharaj is being consoled, he is being advised, he is being basically guided by great personalities. He is being guided by Krishna himself. Krishna himself is guiding Yudhishthir Maharaj, and he is basically pacifying him, trying to help him move out of his intense grief. Krishna is basically pacifying Yudhishthira Maharaj. He's playing a direct role in pacifying him. Now, what could be more fortunate than the Supreme Personality, the object of your worship, taking on the role of wanting to come into your life? The very presence of Krishna is so powerful. The very presence of Krishna is so powerful, and this can be experienced when you are in the Dham. This can also be experienced where Krishna is glorified in many of our temples, where there has been intense kirtan, where Krishna's names, which are non-different from Krishna, have been called into the atmosphere, where there has been, one moment, where there has been intense kirtan, and where Krishna has been called into the atmosphere. Very few people realize that when there is kirtan, there are many personalities who come to listen to kirtan. Personalities whom we can't visualize, we can't see. If the kirtan is very powerful, the whole atmosphere changes quite remarkably. The change in atmosphere is due to the intense kirtan, because the chanter is chanting in a very pure way. They're calling upon Krishna's names with a lot of feeling, a lot of affection, a lot of attachment, and the atmosphere changes. Once the atmosphere changes, there's a shift in consciousness in the atmosphere. It allows higher beings to enter that atmosphere. Very simply put, several thousand years ago, you read in the Srimad Bhagavatam that when a fire sacrifice is being held, you have the appearance of the demigod who is being propitiated. When some sacrifices are being done and someone is embarking on a very important mission which can be affecting the lives of thousands of others, you have Lord Shiva appearing. You have the appearance of the demigods like Lord Indra, Vayu, Chandra. You can read about it in Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the observations we have when we read Srimad Bhagavatam is that there was a lot of interaction of the population on the planet with higher beings. It's quite remarkable, because it's almost as if they come and they participate quite freely. And this is an impossible situation today, because the brahmanas, the mantras being chanted, the dravya, the ingredients for fire sacrifice, all of these matter in being able to draw upon and bring forth such higher personalities. But most importantly, For a higher personality to enter into the atmosphere, they need to experience consciousness which is equal to the consciousness they have. It's a simple principle. It's a simple principle where if consciousness prevalent in the atmosphere is equivalent to the consciousness which is prevalent in that particular realm to which the deva belongs, then they are able to enter into this realm. When the consciousness in this realm, which is this planet, goes down and dips down to such an extent that it becomes hellish, then it allows for the entry of the demoniac. Both personalities can enter. There can be higher beings who can enter into the atmosphere and influence us, because our consciousness, the consciousness of the surrounding, is such that Krishna's servants, they can enter easily because they are not attracted by low consciousness. They are attracted by, whatever is attractive to them in general. And then there are beings who are of a nefarious type, who are very mischievous, who have intent which is distinctly evil. If you create an atmosphere which allows them to enter, they would enter. They would enter, they would be there. They would practically be a part of the atmosphere. So it's not very surprising. So the point which we're trying to make here is Krishna's presence, be it in the form of his holy names, be it in the form of his deity form, be it in the form of a gathering of devotees who are gathered around calling upon the name, all of this is very powerful. And imagine Krishna himself being there in the atmosphere, where he is there. He is touching Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj is being practically consoled, where Krishna has his arms around his shoulder. Practically, we are saying that a normal pacification would be that we would basically give some warmth, some love to someone who is really going through intense times. This is being done by Krishna himself. What is surprising in the previous chapter is that Yudhishthira Maharaj is unmoved. He still has doubts, despite being touched by Krishna, being Krishna's presence. He has doubts. He is still in a state of lamentation. Lamentation in general is the mode of ignorance. Grief is the mode of ignorance in reality. And when we use the word mode of ignorance, we are not doing so in an insensitive manner. We are saying the atmosphere and the consciousness really dips down. It's the mode of ignorance, basically. It dips down. It is tamasic. So in such tamas, the mind is bewildered because we are not in touch with spiritual reality. Intelligence doesn't work. The senses are inefficient. As a consequence, we can't gather information because our functioning is based on how we gather information. Our functioning is based on how we process information in the intelligence. When all of this is being touched by tamas, either due to an event which has been extraordinarily traumatic or due to the atmosphere which is extraordinarily dense, then things don't function as well. So in such a context, imagine Krishna being there and touching Yudhishthira Maharaj. Wouldn't that tamas just disappear? Wouldn't it just disappear? He is the source of all opulence. Just by a mere thought, creation occurs. He expands, he maintains. Everything can disappear by Krishna's touch. But what is astonishing is that Krishna is advising Yudhishthira Maharaj. Srila Vyasadeva, who is an incarnation of Krishna, is advising Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj basically can't be convinced by either of them. He can't be convinced by either of them. So we spoke about it in the previous session, saying, if they had already convinced him and his mind was completely pacified, a pacified mind would not be eager to learn. A pacified mind would not be eager to transform itself. So the opportunity to transform Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is an emperor, was actually accorded to Bhishma Dev, his grandfather. Yudhishthira Maharaj was put in a deliberate state of confusion by Krishna, just as much as Arjun was put in a deliberate state of confusion. There was lamentation. Normally, the very logical Yudhishthira Maharaj could not conclude what was his function at the point in time. He was bewildered. So we are making a distinction. It is okay to grieve because grieving is natural and it is necessary to process emotions. Grieving, a process of grieving is actually very protective and it's necessary because then you're able to release those negative emotions and you're able to move on with life. But being bewildered about duty as to what to do next after such grieving is problematic. That is the problem which is being addressed And Krishna is trying to pacify him, and Krishna is not able to solve it, apparently. And then you have Vyasadeva, who is Krishna's incarnation, literary incarnation. What is it which he can't do? You know, we chant Srila Vyasadeva's name so that we could read and come closer to Srimad Bhagavatam. How powerful is Srila Vyasadeva's name that we are invoking before reading of any scripture, and as a consequence, we get blessed by that name. It's very powerful. Srila Vyasadeva's name, you see, the whole idea of chanting Srila Vyasadeva's name before we begin the study of scripture is to give us the ability to digest scripture. Srila Vyasadeva's name has the ability to assist us to transform basic reading into wisdom. If you want realizations, then that's the mantra. Narayana namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayed. Why are we chanting that mantra? We are invocating Srila Vyasadeva, Mother Saraswati. We are invocating Srila Vyasadeva very specifically because what does happen is that when we invocate them and we bring forth their presence in the consciousness, automatically it gives us the ability to transform while we read, digesting while we read. It's very powerful. That's why this was always combined with mantras. Reading of Srimad Bhagavatam is combined with chanting of Harinam. Without serious chanting of Harinam, one cannot transform and understand Srimad Bhagavatam. Without nice reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, one can't process their experiences while doing Harinam. Harinam is self-sufficient, so is Srimad Bhagavatam. You could do both. But at the same time, it helps, it assists, it complements. We experience it. Yeah? Performing the Yuga Dharma automatically allows us to process Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is being observed. This is actually being observed. So neither of them is able to pacify Yudhishthira Maharaj because it was Krishna's intention that he be bewildered. If Krishna determines that despite whatever I tell you, you're going to be bewildered, you are going to be bewildered, you're going to forget. He says this in 15:15 of the Bhagavad Gita, that we will remember and forget based on his desire. He allows one to remember and forget. Krishna is saying Yudhishthira Maharaj has to forget all his learnings. And he is bewildered. And in a bewildered state, and if someone is sincere, and they're also in touch with spiritual reality, they're going to meet someone, a guru, then they have the ability to glean knowledge out of them. If someone is completely pacified, they become competent. Things don't enter into the skull if you're competent. Prabhupada used to say that one needs to be materially exhausted. Why do we use the word materially exhausted? Material exhaustion literally means that the mind is not pacified by whatever is available here, literally. You can't be attracted to what is available here to pacify yourself. So you are in search of something which is far superior to what's available here. There has to be material exhaustion. So that is what is expected here. That is expected, and Krishna basically sets the stage and then brings Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he takes him all the way to Sri Bhishma Dev. Now, what is very, very powerful about this chapter? We're going to do half the chapter today, and we're going to do the next half in the subsequent week, the week that follows. The half the chapter that we're going to focus on, we want to focus on a topic, and the topic itself is of death. Because Srimad Bhagavatam, I would say in a very simplistic reference, it really doesn't convey more than what I would call a simplistic reference. The Srimad Bhagavatam is about dying. In reality, our process of Krishna consciousness is preparation for the big test. It is preparation for the big test. You see, I was recently reading, and this was something which I read somewhere, that someone had hired a cab driver using one of those apps in India. I guess, you know, you have a Uber, and we have Uber here, but we also have Ola. We have different kinds of cab companies which have apps. And the fellow who responded, his name, the driver's name was Yamaraj. So he just responded, Yamaraj responded to the person who had booked the cab saying, "This is Yamaraj here, and I will be reaching you and you will be seeing me in 10 minutes. You see? What do you think happened to the person who hired the cab? They canceled the ride. Because the moment they see this in India, Yamaraj, it sends such a shiver. People become very uncomfortable. No one names their child Yamaraj deliberately. No one does. It's almost jestful, where you want to talk about people saying that this person, he has capacity to end people's lives. As a consequence, he is called Yamaraj. People jest about you. So the point is that there is such sensitivity about the topic of death. And one wonders, is there anything wrong with the name Yamaraj? Is there anything wrong with the name Yamaraj? He is one of the 12 Mahajanas. In Canto 6, 3rd chapter, 20, 21, verses 20 and 21, there's a description of the Mahajanas. Canto 6, Canto 3, 20, 21. Yamaraj is one of the Mahajanas. He is one of the authorized personalities whom you can go and approach for connection to transcendence. He can connect you to Krishna because he is authorized. He is authorized to inspire us to walk on the path of transcendence. Amongst the 12 Mahajanas, there are 4 Mahajanas who practically have initiated paramparas. You have the Sri Sampradaya, which is initiated by Mother Lakshmi. You have the Brahma Sampradaya, initiated by Lord Brahma. You have the Rudra Sampradaya, initiated by Lord Rudra, Lord Shiva. And then you have the Kumara Sampradaya, initiated by the Kumara brothers, the 4 of them. All these 4 personalities are considered to be Mahajanas. Why? Because coming in touch with them practically is a bona fide source for transcendental life. Is everybody able to hear me? Because I was just wondering if my internet connection is unstable, because I was just curious as to whether there's a problem. Anyways, if it is so, please let me know if there are difficulties. Yeah. So the point which we're just wanting to make here is that nobody wants to call your son Yamaraj. Why so? Because there's a general unpreparedness and fear about death. Why is it that people are afraid of death? Yamaraj belongs to the category of 12 Mahajanas. These are great personalities who are supposed to inspire us on the walk on the path of transcendence. A certain section of Srimad Bhagavatam is allocated to the teachings of Yamaraj, 6th canto. He clarifies the glory of the holy name. He is being drawn upon in the 6th canto, where Lord Dharma, Yamaraj, he's practically clarifying the potency of holy names and the superiority of the holy name. He is being quoted. Then you have great teachings from Mother Lakshmi in the 8th canto. The verse 8 is the appearance of Mother Lakshmi, 8. It's quite interesting. Yeah, 8th canto, 8th chapter, 8th verse. She appears when there is the churning of the ocean of milk. Yeah. So all of these personalities whom we're talking about are great personalities who are counted amongst the 12 Mahajanas. The 12 great personalities who are supposed to guide us. It is interesting to note that I think in Christianity you have the 12 apostles. Yeah. And then in Sri Vaishnava, which is the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, which is the Sampradaya that started from Mother Lakshmi. She is the head of the Sampradaya. And basically, she is taken in the same position as Lord Brahma for us. We are in the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So our lineage starts from Lord Brahma, who is Swayambhu, who has manifested himself, on his own from Krishna's navel, Swayambhu. In other words, Krishna himself is the father and the mother of Lord Brahma, isn't he? In that position, the lotus from Krishna's navel as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu manifests Lord Brahma. So Krishna himself is the father and mother of Brahma. So he is called Swayambhu, one who has manifested on his own, Swayambhu. Now he is a Mahajana. Yeah, the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, the Sanat Kumara brothers, the Kumaras themselves are Mahajanas. They're very instructive. Then you have the Ramanuja Sampradaya started by Mother Lakshmi. She is a Mahajana. Then the other personality is Lord Rudra, Lord Shiva himself. He is a Mahajan. So in the same category, you have Bhishmadev, Mahajan. You have Yamaraj as being Mahajan. So why is it that we are so afraid of Yamaraj? The reason for most people to be afraid, and then this fear can be seen, it's palpable. At the time of death, people become bewildered, and when they leave their bodies, and this bewilderment is due to a lack of understanding and lack of preparation. For us, we are being prepared for the day. Have you seen devotees leave their bodies? You see the pictures, you can almost see a certain level of peace on their faces. Some of them are literally smiling because they have seen certain things while leaving the body, certain arrangements which are being made are being seen. Relatives of those who are serious practitioners of Krishna consciousness, they get surprising welcomes when they leave their bodies, believe it or not. Relatives, I'm talking about parents, people whom we owe things. We owe a lot to our parents, you see. They see a completely different treatment if we are serious devotees when they leave their bodies. If we are serious devotees, the parents get treated extraordinarily well when they leave their bodies. They are prioritized. They do not go through extreme trauma. They are taken care of. This is the beauty of just being connected to someone who is a son or daughter, who is practicing Krishna consciousness and is calling upon the holy names. Arrangements are being made. If you're connected to a guru who is a part of a bona fide parampara in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, wonderful arrangements are made. There's a certain prioritization. The guru, if he's powerful enough, has the ability to intervene and request the overall system in the sky that he wants that disciple to be born in that family or this family. They can do that. If they're powerful enough, they have the ability to request the managers of the universe to place their disciples in situations which are more welcome so that they could continue their devotional service. So all kinds of powerful arrangements can be made if you're connected to a bona fide parampara. Yeah. Now I was just mentioning that in the Sri Sampradaya, you have 12 alvars. You have 12 Mahajanas. So Jesus had 12 apostles, if I'm not mistaken. He had 12 primary disciples. So there's a lot of similarity, and there are reasons for it, but we will not go into because it could be distracting. But the point which I'm just wanting to make here is that the 12 Mahajanas, one of them is Yamaraj, and there's such trepidation and such fear because there is no preparation. If a student wants to take a major exam without preparation, what would they do? I have had those experiences myself. I used to prepare in the last minute. I used to cram things in the last minute, stay overnight, stay up, and then go into the exam without any sleep. I've had those experiences myself. So the point I'm trying to make is that basically when a student is not prepared or is not really functioning properly throughout the year, if they're not doing what they ought to do on a week-by-week basis, because every week when they're taking tests, and every month when they're being tested, every quarter when they're being tested, when the semis are being given, in terms of transitioning to the final exam, and every time they're correcting themselves when these things happen, they have a fair chance of making it. They have a fair chance. Will there be fear if you're prepared for the event? If you have sufficient experiences of what lies beyond? You see, this can be compared to a train journey. For us, the train journey is such that in the train journey, life itself is a train journey. If you are getting in Mayapur, for example, and you want to go to Jagannath Puri, normally there's a good description because the train starts in the evening and reaches early in the morning, it reaches Puri. So what is it which is going to make you afraid of reaching Puri if you're leaving Mayapur and you are in the journey? What is it which is going to make you afraid if your destination is being known? What is it which is going to make you quite nervous if your destination is known and you have done the preparatory work? So it's all about doing the preparatory work before you reach the exam hall. If a student has really done and put in the hours required to prepare for the exam, if there have been a lot of calibration which has been done along the way, they've really studied, they have tested themselves multiple times, then what does the student do? The student who is preparing with such intensity becomes eager for the exams. It's the opposite. The student becomes eager. It is not unusual to see a devotee called Yamaraj Das. I know one of my godbrothers is Yamaraj Das. Being of a Hindu background from India, I was first astonished because this was the time I saw that, oh, this person is called Yamaraj. It's so unusual because we never find that happen. But in devotional service, you can call someone Yamaraj Das, because Yamaraj is a Mahajan. Yeah. Now, the student who is very well prepared is wanting to take the exam sooner. It doesn't mean that they're eager to die. It simply means they're eager for Jagannath Puri to come when you finish the journey from Mayapur. They're eager for the 5 o'clock station so that they could go and see Lord Jagannath. They could get out of the train and they'll be met by loved ones and they could go to see Jagannath. This is our journey. Our journey is a journey of preparation, and it is required for us to understand that what we do today is going to come out when we leave. Please understand, what we do today is going to manifest itself in terms of results when we leave. Have no doubt about it that what we are today is going to come up then. We are not as fortunate as Parikshit Maharaj for us to know. We are not as fortunate as Parikshit Maharaj for us to know when it is. But does it really matter as to when it is? It doesn't. It doesn't. One could just start today, this day, and you could make a determination saying, today I'm going to make a difference in my life. I am going to do what is required. I am going to put faith in the teachings of my parampara. I am going to do what is required in terms of reorganizing myself, and I'm not going to be a simple, I would say, passerby in Krishna consciousness, where we have spent years and years and years and we are simply mute spectators because we do not want to put in what is required in terms of effort. We do not want to do that. We are holding back. So the point I'm trying to say is today can be a day of determination. Today can be a day of determination. It really doesn't matter as to when we have to leave. What matters is how we are prepared for it. Because Krishna says that he will never forget. We could become bewildered at the time of death because a lot of changes can occur in the body which can make it very uncomfortable. We can become completely bewildered. Yeah, there's a complete disorientation. It is not known. They can't even recognize people around them. Because the time of death is as karmic an experience as the time of birth. Every one of us have had different qualities of birth. Every one of us have had different surroundings at birth. Some of us have had births which were perhaps difficult. The mother went through all kinds of challenges to bring us forth. Some of us have had births which have been fairly easy. The point which we are trying to make here is death is as distinct as birth. Do not underestimate the variety of how a person can pass away. There's great variety in that as well. There is great variety. Why is it so? Because it is propelled by karmic reactions. What we are going to be at the time of leaving this body is also propelled by karmic reactions. We leave as we exist. We remember what we do the most. We remember what we do the most. So this is the reason why what we are trying to say is, for a devotee, we are ready because our bags are packed, and we should always try and work towards that level. It does not mean that we are morbid. It does not mean that we are looking for some negativity. It does not mean that we want to die tomorrow. We do not want to die tomorrow. We don't want to die 1 year hence. We are not looking for anything. What we are trying to say is, for us, it's a transition from one kind of service to another. What is it that you are going to do as a servant of Krishna in this lifetime versus the next? You are going to pack your bags and you're going to leave, and you're going to end up doing what you did today, perhaps in a different surrounding. So if the mood today is to submit to Krishna, saying, use me in any way you want, what is the fear of dying? There is no fear of dying because the mood is, use me in any way you want. Take me wherever you want, wherever Prabhupada wants. Who knows if Srila Prabhupada has started his mission again in a different planet altogether. You want to go and assist him. Gaur Leela is happening eternally. There are different earthly planets which are probably experiencing Gaur Leela. Yeah? Maybe you want to go there and join Lord Gauranga if you're fortunate enough. Yeah? To be able to walk along the streets with him and Lord Nityanandaram, chanting the holy names. We have to be prepared for service. So where is the difficulty? There really isn't a challenge. There really isn't a difficulty, because in our determination, we are very, very certain that we are going to serve. That's a desire. And we're going to serve wherever Krishna takes us. We go from one level to another. It's as simple as that. Some of us progress and make a lot of progress, that gives us an accelerated benefit the following lifetime. This is seen amongst devotees. Some devotees, the day they start, they take off like a rocket. Some others, many, many, many years, and they do not move. Why is it so? It's because the reason why some take off and some don't take off is because this is how much they have contributed to Krishna consciousness in the previous life cycle. If they come with a lot of spiritual credit, then they have the ability to use that credit in the present. So their focus is better. They have the ability to subdue the illusion that they face. They have the ability to understand that this is life and I can't really move away from it. But if you haven't done this and you're starting afresh, things could move at a much slower pace. There could be more distractions. In some cases, people just spend a few years and they leave, because this is all they are guaranteed in this particular lifetime, that they just leave. They just come and go. They can't go more beyond that. The lesson has been learned. They've come in touch with Harinam one way or the other, and then they can't really move beyond it. They leave. That's it. Then they have to start again in the subsequent lifetime at the stage which we have left it. The point we are trying to make is that we are on a journey. We are on a journey. What we are today in this lifetime is a snapshot. It's a snapshot in the journey. The journey has had many snapshots, but we are on a journey. So the progression of the journey is all we are trying to talk about when we speak about death. So for a devotee, progressing from one particular body to another to continue service is something which doesn't bewilder them. I have not seen many devotees being afraid, to be honest. I haven't. They receive a lot of care. Krishna arranges. Krishna arranges. When my spiritual master, His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when he was ready to depart, I was in the room an hour before, and I saw Srila Radhanath Swami holding his hand. Then there were devotees with Govardhan Shilas, there were devotees with Shaligram Shilas surrounding him. He was wearing the garlands from Vrindavan, garlands from Mayapur. There was Braj and Mayapur dust sprinkled all around him. What was most significant was that there was intense Harinam. So when there is intense Harinam and you are surrounded by such amazing devotees trying to assist you, which essentially means Krishna himself is in the room. So where is the question of fear when there's so much arrangement which is being made? And we have invariably seen that in our movement, these pictures that come out of devotees, they seem to be quite peaceful. They're surrounded in many ways. There are circumstances which are a little different, but for most part, it is that way. The point we are trying to make is that if our desire is wanting to serve, and if our desire is to transition to Krishna's service from one lifetime to another, Krishna makes the arrangements for our passing. He completely changes the quality of our passing. We have the ability to transition. One such glorious passing, which is found mentioned here, is Srila Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev was so unusual right from the beginning. I have spoken about his qualities in a separate lecture while I was talking about great personalities, before when we started these sessions. But he was quite unusual. He was a son of Mother Ganga. He was the son of Mother Ganga. When you touch Gangajal, when you simply come in touch with Mother Ganga by just touching the Gangajal, I'm very particular about using Gangajal for tilak, because when we use Gangajal and we make tilak and we adorn the tilak, there is an immediate subtle transformation of getting blessed by her. Imagine being a son who has come from her womb. Imagine being in touch with Mother Ganga. So he was Ganga Devi's son. This is so unusual. It is so unusually blessed, to be honest. It is an extraordinary blessing that if you take a dip in Mother Ganga, you immediately get purified Imagine someone who is coming from her womb. She was quite extraordinary. The mother of Bhishma Dev was also quite extraordinary. She was not an ordinary mother. She was an extraordinary mother who practically was so focused in delivering her progeny and wanting them to basically attain, Krishna's lotus feet, that she did not even want to have them go through experiences and experience risk on the planet. When you're here on this planet, there's a lot of risk. A lot of things come in touch because this is a marginal planet. We are very marginal, we are very minute, and we are coming in touch with this extraordinary Bahiranga Shakti, external energy of Krishna, which is so overpowering. And unless we build our focus on the internal potency by coming in touch with Harinam, this external potency of Krishna can overwhelm us. So being in this planet is a state of risk. So she understood the risk and practically delivered all her children except Bhishma Dev. But Bhishma Dev was son of Mother Ganga. What is such a blessing? It's such a great blessing. Just hearing her name and chanting her names, practically invoking her names, is required when you worship Krishna's deities. When you worship the Shaligram, we invoke the presence of Mother Ganga. In the water, there are specific prayers. There are specific prayers to invoke the presence of Ganga Devi in regular water if you are worshipping Shaligram. So she is so powerful. That was the first quality of this person. He was great. He was the son of Mother Ganga. Now, the second point which you want to make is he limited his karmic reactions by the force of time by completely maintaining celibacy. It's quite extraordinary for a Kshatriya to do. You see, he was like a sannyasi from day one. Naishtika Brahmachari, can you believe this? Being a Kshatriya, being fully involved. A lot of people, when they seek advice from me, they come to me, I tell them, if you are going to be a brahmachari, then you should be in an ashram. If you want to be a brahmachari, go to the ashram. Wear saffron, be with other people who wear saffron. You cannot be a brahmachari who works in a bank. You cannot be a brahmachari who runs a store. You can't be a brahmachari who is running some sales team. You can't. Because all these activities require greater involvement and touch with matter. You need to be rajasic. And the moment someone becomes passionate, because they exist in passion in all these places, then they would lose their ability to maintain celibacy. So one can be a bachelor in this world. If you want to be a brahmachari, then you need to be in the ashram. But this personality, Sri Bhishma Dev, was so extraordinary that he was a brahmachari who was extraordinarily involved in managing a kingdom. The rajas, the passion required to run a kingdom is extraordinary. He was practically running it for hundreds of years. He was very old. Yeah, he was running and managing the kingdom because in some circumstance or the other, the children who were born in that lineage either passed away early or they were deficient in certain places. There were so many complications that he was always required. So here was a person who, to the twist of fate, I would say good fortune, took up Naistiki Brahmacharya right from the day one when he was very young. So he is the son of Mother Ganga. He appears here. He does not want many karmic reactions. He is forced to take up celibacy. He takes up celibacy because now he does not have karmic reactions. He doesn't have karmic reactions because he does not have, he does not have to participate in life like everybody else would, where he is basically going to engage in marriage, production of progeny, involvement in karma, so on and so forth. He was practicing life like a sannyasi while being in an extraordinarily passionate body. He was practicing celibacy while being in a Kshatriya body. He was practicing celibacy while doing Kshatriya duties. Very, very, very difficult. The glorification of Bhishma Dev and the reason why his vows were called extraordinary was not because he took the vow of celibacy. It was because his qualities were such that he was very powerful as a Kshatriya. This extraordinarily powerful Kshatriya warrior who is filled with passion, who has great skills, he basically took up celibacy. That became very extraordinary. That is the reason why his vows are glorified. He maintained his vows. He went through great lengths to maintain his vows. He went through intense suffering to maintain his vows. And this was a lesson. He never got involved with the world much. He just did service. So this is typically an example of what we expect in the Bhagavad Gita, where one performs their duty with no expectation for results. One tolerates their circumstances and continues to perform their duty with no attachment to results. This was Bhishma Dev. He was exemplifying the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. He was living the Bhagavad Gita. So he was a Mahajan for par excellence, very unusual, very inspirational for anybody and anyone to come in touch with. So his glorification comes right at the beginning, where he's setting the stage. So one of the 12 Mahajans, Sri Bhishma Dev, is receiving Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas. That is this chapter. So in the first part, we want to study his passing. I'm going to read the aspect of how he appeared. He was practically given the ability to remain on the planet as long as he wanted. There are different kinds of death. I made a mention of this. Some of us have the ability to know when we are going to die. Some of us do. Some of us have the ability to even control the occurrence of death. Some of us have the ability to basically tie our leaving or being on the planet with Krishna consciousness. Krishna wants us to be here, we'll be here. If not, we just leave. This is true with most sincere devotees. With most sincere devotees, their presence on the planet is judged by Krishna's will. Krishna intervenes. If he wants them to be, he will be, let them be here. Sometimes if he feels that their being here could contaminate situations for them, he would take them away sooner. So this is entirely up to Krishna's will. There cannot be, I would say, any determination of when they're going to leave. But there are different types of death. In his particular circumstance, Srila Bhishma Dev could choose when he wants to leave. This is a wonderful benediction. It's a wonderful benediction because he could await an important circumstance. He could await a certain surrounding. Now let's take a look to see how he was surrounded. It was glorious. And the reason I'm saying this is because this is practically the aim of a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist wants to leave with Krishna in their presence. A transcendentalist wants to see Krishna's face. He wants to be surrounded by devotees when they're leaving. This is practically going to be observed now in this particular chapter as to how this great personality, he was so fortunate and he was so great. And he was exemplary in so many ways that great personalities assembled around him. All kinds of personalities assembled around him when he was leaving. He was surrounded by all kinds of personalities who were great, by Krishna himself. Now let's just read this and see some of these verses. The passing of Bhishma Dev in the presence of Lord Krishna. Sutta uvacha iti bhitah prajadrohatva sarva dharma vivitsaya tato vinashan pragyadyatta deva vratokya patate. Sutta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There Bhishma Dev was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away. Now this is interesting. He is lying on a bed of arrows. He is being pierced by bed arrows and he is lying on a bed of arrows. Most painful, most distracting, and anybody who goes through those circumstances would want to leave immediately because they can't take the suffering. What did we say? Was there Anyabhilashita Shunyam here? Was he wanting to leave? The pain was great enough for him to leave. But did he leave? No. So this is someone who was wanting pure bhakti. Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anukulyana Krishna Anushiranam Bhakti Uttama. So he was a jnani who knows suffering and who knows the quality of material life, and he knows exactly how to avoid and what to do. He was quite a jnani. The point is Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. We basically do not want to seek liberation. We do not want to seek relief from our suffering, because that would also be a minimization of the gift of Harinam. But when we suffer, we can't help but call out Krishna. We can't help but call out Prabhupada, saying, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, the suffering is so great. If you so will, please remove me from the suffering. I can't really concentrate on your service. I cannot chant. I can't serve. Remove me, please. This prayer comes out We can say, if you so will, so that we give complete control to Krishna. But even then, this comes out. But here was Bhishma Dev being pierced by arrows, obviously in great pain. A Kshatriya normally can tolerate great pain, but this is the extreme where you're lying on a bed of arrows and you're being penetrated by arrows. You're lying in the battlefield, yeah, with your throat parched. You're lying there day and night, exposed to the elements when your bodily physical condition is so bad. Yet he is waiting. Yet he is waiting. He is not going, he is waiting. This is quite amazing to see what kind of sense control Bhishma Dev had, that he was not disturbed, he was waiting. He was waiting and he was basically, he had the will to leave. He didn't leave. He was waiting. He was using that benediction in such a way that it would not interfere with his Krishna consciousness. He could have left the moment Arjuna pierced him with all those arrows. But instead, he was waiting. He was just waiting. Tada te bratraha sarve sadasvaihi swarnabhushitaihi anvagachan rater vipra vyasa daumyad dayastata. At that time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyasa and rishis like Daumya. Daumya Rishi was the priest of the Pandavas. It is being said here that Yudhishthira Maharaj and his brothers, along with Krishna and Vyasadev and others, they all went in beautifully decorated chariots. Why was it important? It was to cheer up and to give some pleasure to Srila Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev wanted to see the well-being of the Pandavas. He was wanting to see them well situated. He was grieving because he knew that they were righteous. He was also grieving because they were devotees. And as a consequence, here he was grieving. So to give him some happiness, they all went in wonderfully decorated chariots so that he could see that the Pandavas themselves were well situated. Bhagavan api vipresha ratena saddanjanaya sater virochata nripaha kuvera eva kukyakaihi. O sage, amongst the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhishthira appeared very aristocratic, Kuvera, surrounding the Guhyakas. Kubera is the manager of treasures. He is like I would say, the financial controller. He is the CFO, the financial officer of the material universe, where the real opulences are given by Mother Lakshmi. That's good fortune. But the management of opulences and allocation of resources is done by Kubera. So since he handles the wealth of the universe, he is considered to be very opulent in terms of the surroundings. And people who are with him are also very opulent. Here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is being compared to Kubera. Drishtva nipatitam bhumau divaschutam ivamaram pranemuhu pandava bhishmam sanugaha sahachakrinam. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. So the moment they saw Bhishma Dev, they bowed down. Now we notice Krishna behaves like a cousin. He is a cousin of Yudhishthira, so Lord Sri Bhishma Dev is an older relative, so he's paying respects. So Krishna followed the principle that was actually required in different circumstances. When he was on the planet, there was realization he was supreme. He needn't have followed those principles, but he yet followed the principles of paying respects to the older generation, paying respects to those who were senior, paying respects to the Brahmanas, paying respects to the rishis. It is very important. Chatra brahmarshya sarve deva rishyascha sattamam raja rishyascha tatrasan drashtum bharata pungavam. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, Brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. Can you just imagine what the atmosphere would have been? Krishna Vyasadeva, all the great rishis, all the great personalities like Sukadev Goswami, everybody was present there. And they were all surrounding Bhishma Dev, and they were all completely situated in the mode of goodness. So you could have just imagined what the surrounding was. Sangha. This arrangement of leaving the body required work while Bhishma Dev was living. This is the message. This arrangement of wonderful arrangement of leaving the world is reflective of the extraordinary nature of his existence on the planet. So we prepare for that particular day and we welcome it. So here he is. He had the ability to leave, he holds back, not with the desire to just prolong life on this planet. These days you have such research for just prolonging life by a month, 2 months, terminal cancer research, for example, terminal cancer research. And please, I'm not minimizing the affection which people have for the relatives. We are not being unkind or insensitive. But then if someone is going to live in an extraordinarily painful state for 2-3 months, billions and billions of dollars of research are being done just to prolong life by 1 or 2 months. Here was a personality who had the ability to live. He had no problems. Nobody could take him out of the body. He had authority. But here he was waiting for an opportunity, because even though he was in such a painful state and he could have left early, he was waiting for the right time, right moment. That was the level of control he had over his senses. There's something quite remarkable. When someone is practicing sense control, very specifically, if you're serious about your Ekadashi Vrata, if you're serious about your Ekadashi Vrata, the seriousness of Ekadashi following, how seriously you perform Ekadashi, that is going to be reflective on your ability to control your senses. Your senses can be controlled. Your senses would be in control. You should notice that. Your mind, if it is going to be chastised and is going to be kept in control for following Ekadashi, that would give you the ability to tell your mind, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I want to go to Mangalarti. Wake up. I want to chant. Because your mind now has already been disciplined during Ekadasi, twice a month. Ekadashi is quite significant. It removes and reduces and minimizes the connection with this world. Yeah, it purifies the connection to this world, Prithvi. It purifies. As a consequence, the amount of air which is contaminating could be controlled. You control your mind if your Ekadashi fasting is serious. So here he is, completely in control. Now, the next verse, 6 and 7. Parvato narado daumyo bhagavan badarayana brahadashvo bharadvajah sasishyo renuka sutah vasishta indra pramadas-trito gritspamadositah kaksivan gautamotrischa kaushikot satudarshanah. All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narad Muni, Daumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihadashva, Bharadvaja, and Parashurama and disciples, Vasishta, Indra Pramada, Trita, Gritasamada, Ashita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present. This is just fascinating to see the assembly that had surrounded Bhishma Dev. You can just imagine what the atmosphere was. It's unimaginable, inconceivable. This is association. Krishna himself is present. His incarnation, Srila Vyasadeva, is present. His another incarnation, Parashuram, is present. His weapon, Sudarshana, is present. This is just fascinating. Yeah, could everybody put yourself on mute, please? There's someone who needs to put yourself on mute. Yeah, thank you. Anye cha munayo brahman brahmaratadyo malaha sishye rupet ajagmuh kashyapang girasadayah. And many others like Sukadeva Goswami and other purified souls, Kashyapa and Angirasa and others, all accompanied by the respective disciples, arrived there. Glorious. Tan sametan mahabhagan upalabhya vashuttamah pujaya asa dharmagno deshakala vibhagavat. Bhishma Dev, who was the best amongst the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there. For he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. Received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis. He himself was pierced by arrows and he was lying on a bed of arrows. Yet he had spoken most appropriate words to welcome his guests. So here he is also performing the principle of welcoming people as if they're coming into his house. Krishnam chatat prabhavajna asinam jagadishwaram hridistam pujayamasa mayayo pata vigraham. Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishma Dev, and since Bhishma Dev knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. See, this is so powerful. Krishna is coming. He's sitting right in front of Bhishma Dev. He is receiving worship where Bhishma Dev is glorifying him. And Bhishma Dev basically is a resident of Vaikuntha. He sees Krishna in the 4-armed form, Chaturbhuha. He sees him in the 4-armed with 4 weapons. He does not see him in the 2-armed form. He is basically someone who is attracted to Narayana. He knows Krishna is the source of every other Narayana. He is the source of Sri Narayana Rupa. Krishna is the source because it is Balaram who begins this journey. Krishna is Avatari. Krishna in Vrindavan is always engaged in pleasurable activities with his devotees in Vrindavan. He never leaves Vrindavan. Balaram expands. He expands into Vasudev, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. He then expands into the Purusha incarnations. He then expands into the various avatars. All of this is done by Balaram, who is non-different from Krishna, but he can never see Krishna working. Balaram will not allow Krishna to work. He is Sevaka Bhagavan. The motivation for Balaram is, I will not allow you to work. We notice this in Gaur Leela, where Gauranga was in Jagannath Puri. He was engaging in katha. He was engaging in basically his meditation and his extraordinary absorption in Jagannath and the names of Krishna and Kirtan, in listening to katha from Gadadhar Pandit, listening to katha from the likes of Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Raya Prabhus. They were basically his personal associates from the spiritual kingdom. He was completely existing in the blissful engagement of katha, which is akin and which can be compared to the engagement and absorption of katha and the absorption of Krishna consciousness experienced in Vraja by Radharani and her associates. Who went out and preached? Who initiated the preaching around the 3 worlds? Nitai. It was Lord Nityananda who initiated the preaching. It was Lord Nityananda who initiated the preaching. He was the one. He would not allow Mahaprabhu to move. He would not. He said, you go, you engage in whatever gives you pleasure. Be in Jagannath Puri, engage yourself and absorb yourself in whatever is important. I will take care of the preaching. So this work of preaching is done by Lord Nitai. So the point is, it is the same principle in Goloka. Krishna never leaves. It is Balaram who takes over. He expands, he manages. It is Balaram. So this particular potency which Bhishma Dev was very attracted to was the 4-armed form of Krishna. That is being described here. Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishma Dev, and since Bhishma Dev knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. Panduputran upasinan prarashe prema sangatan abhyas chat anugrahe ser andibhutena chakshusha. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for the dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishma Dev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. There was great proximity between the Pandava brothers and Bhishma Dev because they did not have a father. They lost their father quite early. It was Bhishma Dev who used to give them the affection because they were assaulted and they were kind of looking for shelter. He was the one who was actually giving them shelter. Aho kashtam aho nyayam yadyuyam dharmanandanah jivitum narhata klisham vipradharmachuta ashrayah. Bhishma Dev said, oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls had to suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you are protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. Samstate tirate pandav pratabbala prajavaduhu yushmat krite bahun kleshan praptalo tokavati muhu. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children. Therefore, she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. See, from this, we come to understand that these great personalities were not completely insensitive. They could understand human suffering. They were not saying that there is no suffering. They were not saying that there was really nothing which was happening. They were basically sensitive to the suffering of others. They were quite sensitive to the suffering of others. They were able to see the suffering. Sarvam kalakaratam manye bhavatam chayad apriyam sapalo yad vashe loko vayoriva ganavalihi. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone and every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. And the reason I mentioned this earlier is because in the devotee community, sometimes we become very insensitive. When someone is going through suffering, what do we say? We say, Prabhu, Mataji, this is just purification. Imagine hearing this if you're going through some intense troubles in life. Oh, this is just purification. Sometimes we can be quite, I would say, terse, and we could cause pain, even though our intentions are not so much to cause pain. It is simply because we just don't know how to place ourselves, present ourselves, and talk to the people who are troubled. But here we notice that the first thing which Bhishma Dev is doing, even though he is exalted enough to attract so many people around him, and he is suffering himself lying on a bed of arrows. The first thing that he is doing is he is particularly telling his grandchildren, the Pandavas, I understand why you're going through what you're going through. I understand this. Don't think that I am lying on this bed of arrows and in my suffering, I have forgotten your suffering. I understand your suffering. So they're acknowledging the emotional distress. They're acknowledging the distress of the Pandavas. So this is very important for us also to remember that when you come across suffering, rationalizing those suffering is perhaps required at some level, but more important is for us to have empathy. More important is for us to be able to react in a manner which gives solace and which removes the emotional distress of the person. This is very important. So I was just wanting to say that that is going to be a principle which is also seen here in how to react to people who are suffering. Do you just pounce and give them siksha? Do you just tell them and throw the book on them, saying that, why are you crying? You seem to be quite dumb. Why are you distressed? Why are you lamenting? Or should we take on a position of being able to give them solace because we have understood that they are going through a lot, and then we want to be empathetic. We want to offer them our, comfort. We also want to pacify them first, because without pacifying emotions, you can't dictate people anything. You can't give them anything more. So the first principle when you talk to people is to see if there is emotional distress, you bring down the emotional distress, because the mind is bewildered. What philosophy can you preach to someone who is lamenting? You can't preach philosophy to someone who is lamenting. You need to first assuage, you need to pacify the emotional distress, which is what is being seen here. Bhagavatam has so much to learn from. Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, even if all the books in the world were to be burnt, if we have Bhagavatam, then we would be able to move forward, because this is all we need. In reality, there are so many different things that we learn from Bhagavatam. If you observe it carefully, if you see how the behavior of people is, then you would also learn basically on how to deal with different circumstances of life. Yatra dharma suto rajaha gada panir vikrodaraha krishnos trigandivam chapam suhrit krishnas tato vipat. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion? Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. Nahi asya karhichit rajan puman veda vidit sitam yad vijigdasya yukta muhyanti kavayopihi. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord, Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Tasmat idam daivatantram vyavasya bharatarashabah tasyanuvihito nata pahi prajaprabho. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhishthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. So basically, he is reaching the conclusion. After pacifying emotionally, he is first pacifying Yudhishthira emotionally. He is now talking logic. He's bringing his attention to duty. He is saying that remember that it is a time factor. If not, how could you have gone through what you went through? You are so powerful because you are the son of Dharma. You are the son of Yamaraj. You're so powerful. You had Arjuna who had the Gandiva next to you. You had Bhima with his Gada next to you. How could you have gone through what you went through? Most importantly, you had Krishna with you. So understand that this is all a part of the Lord's plan. First, accept it. Bhishma Dev is telling him, accept it. Accept the Lord's plan. This is the Lord's plan. Tasmat idam. Okay, sorry. He is using the word Tasmat idam daivatantram. Yeah? Daivatantram. Tantram means tantra. Mantra means to control the mind. Yeah? Traye, manatraye, to control the mind. Kshatriya means who offers us protection. Traye, protection from harm. Shat, he protects the body. Now, in a similar fashion, Tantra. What does Tantra mean? Tantra essentially means Tanu is the body, it's a physical object, and who is controlling the physical object? That is Tantra. So basically, he's saying it is Daiva Tantram. It is the providence, it is the time factor who has then manipulated your life. They have manipulated my life. Here's where I am. So you can't really complain, Yudhishthira, because you had all of this. How else could this have happened? It is Daiva Tantram. We have been manipulated. I'm using the word manipulated to indicate, the handling of the strings of life as a puppeteer would handle puppets by the servants of Krishna who are controlling time. Esha vai Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayana Puman Mohayan Mayaya Lokam Gudas Charati Vrishnishu. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of God. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he's bewildering us with his self-created energy. Asyanubhavam Bhagavan Veda Guhyatmam Shivaha Deva Rishid Naradaha Sakshat Bhagavan Kapilo Nripa. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage amongst demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Yam manyase matuleyam priyam mitram suhritmam akkaurah sachivam dutam sauhridad atasharatim. O king, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, is the very personality of God, Sri Krishna. So he's quoting, saying, Shiva, Narada, Lord Kapila, they all knew Krishna by direct experience. He's saying, I'm not alone, I'm insignificant. You should also take counsel of others. Sarvat manaha samadrisho hi advayas yana hankritehe tatkritam mati vaishamyam niravadyasya nakvachit. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he's present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he's free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu pashya bhumanukampitam yanme sum tyajatah sakshat krishno darshanamagatah. Yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. This is quite extraordinary. He has realization. Yes, he is equal to everyone, but he has come before me because there's a special link. I am his unflinching servitor. Bhaktya veshya mano yasmin vachayan nama kirtayan tyagyan kalevaram yogi muchyate kama karma bihi. The personality of God who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of quitting the body. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of quitting the material body. Amazing. So one of the things is that because Sri Bhishma Dev was lying on the bed of arrows, he was practically exhausting any connection to the world by practically burning up the karmic reactions which bound him by continuing to suffer. By suffering and by lying there, he was practically wanting to burn away every last bit of prarabdha. You see, it was quite amazing. He was basically planning on quitting, so as a consequence, he was waiting. He was also basically planning to take care of things by burning away the prarabdha. Okay, we have two more verses and we stop. Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam Hinomi Aham Prasannaha Saruna Lochanusan Lochanolasan Mukam Bhujo Dhyana Patas Chaturbhujaha. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. So he is basically seeing Krishna in the four-handed form. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at the moment when I quit this material body. Sutauvacha yudhishthirastad akarnya sayanam sarapanjare aprachad vividhan dharman rishinam chanushrinvatam. Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhishma Dev speak in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. We stop here. So next week, we'll touch upon the teachings of Bhishma Dev in terms of religious duties. So any questions or comments? So there's a lot. We covered the first part by the previous week's discussion. Then we covered the gist of today's discussion as to preparation for death. We wanted to say that there is a certain degree of freedom that we have, which allows us to control the circumstances of birth in the next lifetime, but that depends on how we live in this particular lifetime. That depends on how we live in this particular lifetime. So if we live in a certain way, we have the opportunity to modify our ability to live in a certain way. That in turn allows us to choose the next placement. Yeah? So it's quite logical. So we'll stop here and we'll see if there are any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
In devotees' cases also, sometimes their death will not be in a favorable situation. What will be their? How can we understand this? Like Tamil Krishna Goswami's accident and Ayendra Prabhu's accident. Such things when we hear, why Krishna is not kind to them to give favorable conditions for passing away their life.
Let's look at both examples that you talked about briefly. Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj was on his way to board a flight, and his car met with an accident very near the place where Srila Haridas Thakur sits for bhajan. Do you understand? It was very much within the Gaur-mandal. It was very much within the surroundings of Gauranga's pastimes, very much. So the point I'm trying to make is, let's assume that this did not really happen on the way in a flight or in Calcutta or someplace. It happened very much within the area of Navadip Mandal, the Parikrama Mandal, very close to Haridas Thakur's cave. With the case with Aindra Prabhu, which was very, very disheartening, sad, where he basically, left his body. And I'm still not very clear. So I just don't want to pursue the fact of trying to find out what is true and what is not true. I'm not very clear because he went through a fire accident and it was basically the smoke in the room, etc. But then where did he leave? He left in Braj. He passed away in Braj. He passed away surrounded by his 1,000 Shilas, his Shaligram Shilas. Obviously, because of his absorption in Kirtan, he would have also chanted, and he would have definitely asked for help from Krishna to continue his service. Some opportunity would have been given. But even if all of this did not happen in Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Aindra Prabhu's cases, Krishna would never forget their services. So there was no question of Krishna forgetting their services. The circumstances externally was inauspicious. You will read in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when we reach there, we will read about the passing of Vritasura. Vritasura was Chitraketu, and this Chitraketu basically had to go through some tribulation because he behaved in an inappropriate manner before Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, and Mother Parvati cursed him. He basically became an Asura. So in Asura's body, he never forgot his consciousness. He actually died in battle, never forgetting that he was a servant of the Lord. He was a servant of Lord Sankarsana. Basically, he and Lord Shiva had the same deity of propitiation. So in jest, he was talking to Lord Shiva. Mother Parvati became very upset with the way he was talking because it sounded very insulting. And as a consequence, he was born in Asura Yoni and he became Asura. He challenged the devotees. The point is, his death occurred in the battlefield, but he returned back to Krishna to continue his service. Maharaj Indradyumna, in the Bhagavatam, we read about him in the 8th canto, where he was a king who was constantly engaging in service, but to accelerate his return, he insulted someone and he was given body of an elephant, and in the next birth Krishna delivered him from the clutches of the crocodile and took him back, personally came to take him back. He was in a different kind of body. So what I am trying to say is the context of death for devotees have to be studied very closely, but we should always remember that when something happens to a devotee, Krishna is involved, and what we do not know is what worse things could have happened to them. Krishna took the decision to take them away in circumstances which were relatively favorable. Does it make sense? In both
Yes.
the cases, in both cases they passed away in the Dham. In both cases.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So they passed away in the Dham, surrounded by deities, surrounded by, I would say, circumstances. But it was not auspicious from the perspective of a material departure surrounded by devotees doing kirtan. Yeah? It was not there. That is true. But what I'm saying is that can't be the factor purely to judge a devotee's passing. Do you understand? I was just wanting to say that Krishna is involved in this.
Okay. Oh, one. Can we understand in a different way as well? Like maybe Krishna has different plans for them to send them to some other planet for preaching or some other activity. Can we? Is this?
We can understand. See, well, we could always say that it was Krishna's plan because I reflect constantly on Aindra Prabhu a lot more. I've had very brief contact with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I saw him several years back once in Mayapur for a festival. But then the point I'm trying to make is I had very little contact. But Aindra Prabhu, I can basically relate to because of the fact that it was very recent. So the point is that there are so many. The entire Kirtan revolution in ISKCON was due to, you can say in many ways, due to his presence. He was such a great inspiration. And he had such clarity of the philosophy, and he had such clarity of doing what is a priority based on what Prabhupada and our acharyas have taught, that it was fascinating just to see him exist. So even today, he was such a special soul that he's inspiring us. And so is Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Maharaj organized so much for Srila Prabhupada. The point I'm trying to make is that we should assume that all this was required for them to be better situated, because Krishna would have loved them a lot more than we can perceive in certain ways. Does it make sense? Externally, to our observation, there could have been certain karmic circumstances which would have required their departure in certain circumstances, and Krishna would have simply allowed them to leave that way. You understand? It would
Yes.
just have been to facilitate some plan which he didn't want to violate. So, for example, with Abhimanyu, his nephew, the son of Subhadramaya, who is to say that he had to die in the battlefield, surrounded by warriors and being cut to pieces by different weapons? You had Bhishma Dev, for instance, great personality, lying on the battlefield on a bed of arrows, inauspicious from the perspective of material calculation, but most auspicious as we're looking at now. Yeah. So we should take things into account in a broader way.
Yes, bro. Yeah.
Sure.
Just one more Maharaj, Bhaktiraghav Maharaj, Bhaktiraghav Swami Maharaj is coming in my mind. Like when dacoits attacked the Mayapur temple, and he was bombed and he lost his leg, but still he continued with his services. That's another inspiring.
He's a great inspiration. One of the things, I met him around 25 years back, 20 years back in New York Rath Yatra, and he used to feel so bad. I'm talking about Bhakti Raghav Maharaj. He used to feel so bad when people pay obeisances to him, because he couldn't pay obeisances back. He had his crutches. So what I'm saying is that these devotees are wonderful, and these are great inspirational personalities.
Yes, bro. Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Any question or comment, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Yeah, Haribol. I mean, normally we say that having a good association around you will definitely have an impact on yourself. But here, having Bhishma Dev around, Duryodhana team, having Bhishma Dev kind of person around him, Pandavas around him, Vidra around him, but still none of them could influence their mind. So is it just destined that what should happen to eliminate them, or nobody tried to make them get this knowledge of having Sri Krishna around them?
See, there were personalities who decried Krishna. He basically could not even accept Krishna, even though Krishna was present. He could not even accept Krishna. So the point is a matter of credits. It is a matter of credits. Like we say, for example, someone who is simple has the ability to make a lot of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A child has the ability to make a lot of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Why? Because a child's mind is quite simple. It has the ability to receive. Heart is open, so they can receive knowledge. They're able to move forward. But at the same time, someone who is very intellectually advanced, who is conceited because of the intelligence, they don't have the ability to process what's being given to them. Their hearts are already full. A beggar whose bowl is apparently full does not attract alms, does not attract anything. So the person is already thinking, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm so accomplished in so many different ways, and then they're basically shutting themselves out from any kind of counsel. So very unfortunate circumstances, but a lot of this was seen. You had Shishupal, for example, Krishna's cousin. Yeah, one side the cousins were the Pandavas, the other side there was Shishupal, who constantly was under control of his destiny, where he used to insult Krishna. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, in some cases the atmosphere is such that even with opportunities, they don't have the ability to move forward.
Right.
Yeah. Any other question or comment?
Hare Krishna.
Haribol?
Haribol. We're supposed to follow the Mahajans, and I'm a bit unclear about Vishnudev seeing Krishna as in the four-handed. I mean, we're always led to believe to worship Krishna in a two-handed form. Yet, how come this Vishnudev is looking at the four-handed form as opposed to the two-handed Krishna?
Well, Bhishma, good question. Basically, it is a matter of being attracted to a certain form of Krishna. So, for example, it is said Hanumanji appeared as Sri Murari Gupta Prabhu in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at that time, Murari Gupta Prabhu told Lord Chaitanya, I can never see you as Krishna. Yes, we all understand Krishna is the origin, but who can Hanuman see? Hanuman can only see Lord Ram. He basically could only see Lord Ram in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, I can't chant anything but Ram's names because that's my attraction. This is also a lesson for us. It is a lesson that in our journey, there are different personalities with different levels of affiliation, attraction. Some of them have eternal connections. And we need to be able to accommodate all of that in our journey. So in one sense, what we are saying is that we are following him from the precept of how to live and what to do in life and overall in terms of his glories. Being in such a circumstance of being so glorious in his role, of performing his duty, engaging in the servant or service of his duty. Because Krishna, in this particular sequence, the next week we will see the sequence. Krishna is taking Yudhishthira and the Pandavas not to hear from Bhishma Dev on how to meditate on the pastimes of Braja. Krishna is taking Yudhishthira and the Pandavas so that Bhishma Dev could instruct them on life. So we should also be very careful. When Bhagavatam is speaking, they give us instructions of how the instruction given is very contextual. For example, you see the instruction given to Dhruva Maharaj's father, Uttanapad. Shri Narad Muni, when he meets Uttanapad, he is not talking about devotional service. And one would say that whenever Shri Narad Muni comes in touch with us, he should only talk about devotional service because he is the sage of devotional service. He's supposed to impart devotional service. But he doesn't do that with Uttanapad, Dhruva Maharaj's father. He starts to him, how is your kingdom? How are your subjects? How is your duty as a king? Different which are relevant to him more from a functional basis. Are we supposed to learn from this? Yes. We have to learn two things. Number one, there is an understanding which we have to reach, that different people can have different attractions, whilst the highest goal being Goloka is also known to them. That is the first point. There can be different attractions. Number two, the second point, which we also want to understand fully from this particular kind of sequence, is that there is something called adhikar. You have to have adhikar, you have to have the authority to reach a place. Knowledge requires certain authority. We need to be qualified to receive it. Here, the Bhagavatam is saying, even though Krishna is from Braja, and Krishna was standing right in front of Bhishma Dev, Bhishma Dev did not have the authority to approach him as Rajendra Nandan. Can you understand that? It's quite significant. Bhishma Dev did not have the authority to approach Krishna as Rajendra Nandan, as Nanda Nandan, as Yashoda Nandan. He could only accept him with authority and Aishwarya in Vaikuntha. If Bhishma Dev can't approach Krishna, if Mother Kunti can't approach Krishna because she's aware of Krishna's opulence, if the Pandavas can't approach Krishna in Braja, one should ask ourselves as to what is our qualification because we have been given this path. So that's the instruction as well, that we are completely unqualified when these great personalities have no authority to get so personal with Krishna. But yet Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Ram have given us that mercy. So that's the other context of understanding as well.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. One last point I want to bring. I observe, like I see when someone dies, people don't take it so seriously. Like 1 or 2 days we feel sad and then we'll continue with our regular activities or whatever. And sometimes you see like nobody cares, like so many people dying around and we don't uh, reflect and see what is this, what will happen after death. Or sometimes we make jokes also about death. Someone died, or let him die, kind of very neglect with the negligence also we speak. I don't understand what makes people to take death not as a serious thing. Any comment, Prabhu?
Yeah, this is the greatest mystery of life. It is the greatest mystery of life. That's the only answer I have. This is the greatest mystery of life, that even though death surrounds us, we don't even believe that we are going to die. Forget about thinking someone else is going to die. We don't believe we are going to die. We don't. This is a great mystery of life. This is one of the most astonishing mysteries of life. This vairagya which comes in when we see death around, where we become conscious. I remember attending the funeral. I went to a funeral several years back, and someone was with me, and they made a comment saying, what a headache just being, because that funeral was of a younger person, and we could see the lamentation of the wife, lamentation of the children. And the person who was with me was making a statement saying, oh, what a life, what a dreadful experience it is just to have so many connections in this life. Being a brahmachari would be best. But then that is knowledge. After a few years, we forget everything. After a few days, we forget everything. That's just knowledge. It's vairagya. It's detachment. The detachment that comes is called smashana vairagya. Smashana is crematorium. When you go to the crematorium, you develop detachment. After a few days, you forget. So there's a specific term for it. So not surprising, but that's the biggest mysteries of life.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, see, we see like we don't even bring such topics into our discussion. We try to avoid it, and actually that's the like very serious subject which we don't bother at all. I wonder, like, we don't bother to think about it. I don't think it's wrong if every day we think about our death, because we are nearing death. Maybe we need to be more serious on what is important in life.
Yeah, my spiritual master used to start the day by thinking that's his last day, and he used to organize his day in such a way that he can maximize his service. So if that intensity comes, all of that is fine. It's wonderful. Everything else will also fall in place.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Yes,
other question or comment?
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Okay, so I don't see any questions, and I thank you very, very much for being a part of the Sangha. We'll meet again the following week, and we'll conclude the remaining 20-odd verses of Srila Bhishma Dev's teachings. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Sure.